sacrifice that sometimes, like, relationships are easy. What's hard is when you're struggling with the wrong person, um, which I agree. But I also think too, to add to that is uh, sh- struggling with the wrong people. A lot of times when we are saying that, we're saying we're struggling with the wrong person, meaning that it's the other person. And a lot of times, I think you yourself could be the struggle. Like, you're the struggle, right? If you haven't, like how we were talking about earlier, sacrificing your ego, sacrificing past trauma, sacrificing all of those things, you come into a relationship and your perception is that the other person is the problem. And that's why you're struggling, because you want them to adapt to your flaws, your insecurities, your trauma, which if they did, you feel it would make the relationship better. So a lot of times we are projecting when we need to be reflecting, right? Even for me, a lot of times I will get upset about something and then come back and recognize that he didn't mean it like that. I took it like that. And then I have to go apologize for it. So sometimes you have to recognize what the struggle is, right? So I do agree with you, but that's another layer to that idea, is that looking outside yourself, and saying that you're struggling with the wrong person when sometimes that wrong person is you. Um, the other thing is what he pointed out is love is the willing to make the sacrifice even if they don't change.
Mm,
That just hit, that just hit so good. But one of the problems is that I think that what happens a lot of times, even in this conversation that we were having earlier about what you bring to the table, a lot of times we go into relationships looking for what other people can give us. And to me, that mindset is the total opposite of what sacrifice is, because you're looking for the person to fulfill things that you want, as opposed to the mindset of, am I at the capacity that I can give the other person what they need? And I had put too, a lot of times people go into relationships with the mindset too of who is going to have more control or power. So then it becomes a power dynamic, a struggle. But imagine if everybody walked into a relationship with their mind on what I am going to be able to sacrifice for the other person. And I think when you have that mindset, it makes you think of relationship totally different. Do I have the capacity to even sacrifice when I look at this person as who they are and I want to accept them as who they are fully? Do I have the ability and capacity to even sacrifice to build them up, right? Because when I had looked up like sacrifice, I wanted to kind of get a conceptual idea of it. And it was two things that I saw. It said it refers to giving up something valuable, important, or desired for the sake of something else considered to have greater value or significance. Or overall sacrifice involves a trade off where something is relinquished for a higher purpose, belief, or desired outcome. And being able to see that in concrete, that is when Viz was talking about having a structure. I would say that is the infrastructure to marriage. Like, I think Clout was saying something about marriage not necessarily being a tradition because there's so many options of what you can choose. You can have a marriage, but not, the gender roles or the expectations of who do what is what changed. But the foundation of a marriage is exactly that. The How much am I willing to sacrifice for the greater good of the marriage? Am I willing to put my ego aside? Am I willing to lose sleep because I know I have to support his dream, or I have to help with the kids, all of those things. So I think if we just reframe our mindset about what a marriage is like, what love means, that we would see a decrease in divorce, as opposed to looking at marriages, what is the other person going to fulfill for me?
All right, go ahead, Cloud.
Um. Okay, so I wrote a couple things down, but he said something about your that someone's your person if you're willing to sacrifice for them, even if they don't change. I think that's dangerous advice, and the reason why I think that is because people sacrifice for drugs, people sacrifice for toxic relationships, people sacrifice for all type of things that aren't healthy, that don't serve them. So to use that as a measurement, what you're willing to sacrifice for as a measurement of whether that's your person or not, I think that's odd. On top of that, he emphasized that your partner shouldn't have to change, but that there seems to be this emphasis on you as the individual sacrificing. So it doesn't make sense to me that a loving relationship will require that you don't expect your partner to change, but you expect yourself to change. I think that's more so what happens in relationships that are self-sacrificial. And again, those relationships are usually toxic and not healthy. Um, on top of that, love, in my opinion, it's not a sacrifice when it's love. If I feed my child, there was no sacrifice made. If I feed my pet, there was no sacrifice made. If I view it as a sacrifice, then to me that's a clear sign that that's not my person, because it shouldn't be a sacrifice. It should be feeding your loved one should be like wiping your own ass. It should be like feeding yourself. Do unto others as you do unto yourself. So there's no way I'm sacrificing anything by feeding my loved ones, because that's just like feeding myself. There's no sacrifice by me taking time to work hard to take care of my family, because I'm taking care of myself by taking care of my family. So a lot of the wording and a lot of the things he said, to me, it's contradictory. You can't tell me that I'm supposed to be willing to sacrifice even if the person doesn't change, but you're essentially saying I'm supposed to change if the person doesn't change. But whatever happened is standing on your principles and standing on what you believe. I don't think a person who loves you also would require that type of sacrifice from you. If it's something that comes off as a sacrifice, they wouldn't require that of you. Nobody would really want you to do that. They would want you to feel whole, and they would want to enrich you the same way that you're enriching them. So giving out of love is no sacrifice at all. So to me, it doesn't make sense.